back. You are watching and listening to Breakfast with Ellie and Nicholas. We're having lots of fun here this morning.
Indeed we are. Time to go through the papers now, and joining us this morning is the author Ella Whelan and the journalist and broadcaster Claire Muldoon. Well, Claire, let's get off on... We've had a lot of light stuff this morning, but something quite serious and affect an awful lot of people. I think the Times has got the story, hasn't it?
The Times has. No, the Times has, but also I wanted to tie it in with what the FT have as well. So
mortgages.
It is. Banks cut mortgage rates in a bid to lure back buyers, because before Christmas we had interest rate hikes of up to, I think the fixed rate mortgage on average was 5.75%. Now, what we found is that actually the FT have reported that house prices have fallen for the fourth month as rising costs take toll. So those that want to get onto the property ladder are now faced with the perfect time, the perfect storm really, because lower interest rates and lower house prices. But as you've quite rightly said earlier before we went on air, then what that will do is just propel the supply and demand again and again and again.
And up go the prices.
And up go the prices again. But I think it's a really good time to actually move if you can, and indeed start on the mortgage ladder if you can. There's so many people that can't, and I'm one of them. Being a freelancer, it's incredibly difficult to get a mortgage. And it's very difficult to actually, especially in London, get on the property ladder, where the average house price in London is still well above the UK average at £541,000. That's over £500,000. And yet the UK average is only, well, I don't mean only, I'm not minimising the cost of anything, but around the £240,000 mark. But for the past 13 years, we've had a very, very, very traditionally low interest rate. In fact, the interest rates were practically zero in some quarters. How on earth we thought that could continue, and when, you know, it was completely unsustainable. And lots of people said it for years. And I think if the Bank of England had actually done their job when they were supposed to be doing it, we wouldn't be in this position, or the position that we're in now wouldn't be as bad. Now, we need to remember back to the 70s and 80s when we had runaway inflation, and then moving into the time of Norman Lamont when we had interest rates at 16% in the 80s. How people dealt with that was completely different from the way they deal with it now. You know, we didn't have the takeaway ideas that we have now. We don't have the coffee shops then. People earned their money and they budgeted really, really well. And post-pandemic, I think everyone was used to either drinking or staying in and getting Deliveroos. That whole business model going forward would be really interesting to find out what actually happens to that as people start to cut their cloth to the way that they have to budget their own family lives.
And that's what we were hearing earlier from one of our guests about financial resolutions, and people are just, you know, with food inflation, going to have to start thinking about those daily coffees, those sausage rolls from Greggs and whatnot. Ella, let's go over to you now, the paper. Now, this is a pretty crazy story, isn't it? Students that are paying £9,500 a year to attend university, 28% of courses are still hybrid. They're doing a lot from home.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously we saw throughout the pandemic there was a move within some university courses, that those that remained open, to put teaching online so that students could carry on studying. You know, a move that was very beneficial for universities, because you know, even on a very basic level, you get to save on the heating bills for lecture rooms. You know, it's a much easier model for university bosses and administration staff to be able to deal with, not actually having students in the room. But you know, normal student life, particularly if you're paying eye-watering fees, should be face-to-face, should be in that room, should be seminars where you're mixing with people, meeting your lecturers. And yeah, the eye reports that 28% of courses are still being taught online. And you know, the question is what to do about it. So the government has one way of dealing with this. Michelle Donlan, who was the universities minister back when she was in that role, said that she would employ private inspectors to go into universities and go onto campuses and double check as to whether or not people are back in the room. I don't particularly think that's a great way of dealing with it, because of course, you know, there are some universities, particularly if you're, you know, courses for people who are in employment, maybe older students who are working and things like that, it can be flexible to have some stuff online, and universities should be allowed to do that. But it's more about, I think, changing the culture of, whether it's working from home or studying from home, of encouraging people that actually public life is only public life if the public are there engaging in it, and to kind of get back to normal in a genuine sense, which is that you want to actually be out in the street or out in your university halls or out in the lecture halls and mixing with people rather than staying at home.
It's all sort of building a sort of new world, a new future where working from home, if you're at university, most of your university courses at home, and then you'll want to work from it's changing things, and for people like me, I don't think for the better at all.
I agree with you.
I think it's for the whole working from home thing, which is a bit different from studying, but I mean, to the whole kind of culture of doing things from home makes it easier, is the argument for it says that it's, for example, women who have kids or people who have families, it's easier, and it gets used as an excuse to not talk about things like childcare. And anyone who has kids, I've got a little boy, knows that you can't work from home with a child. It's impossible. So there's a kind of a bit of a myth that working from home suits most people. It suits you if you're a sort of young person in your 20s who's likes walking to the local coffee shop and getting your coffee and not being bothered by your boss looking over your shoulder. That's fine. But for most people, actually getting out into the workplace and being able to be paid properly and have a nice place to work in is more important.
But it's the life skills as well that kids and students are missing out on. I've got a kid at Leeds University and another one up at Newcastle, and I would hate for them to be spending £9,500 a year and not getting the tertiary education that they, 1, deserve, 2, want, and 3, actually paid for. When we were all at uni, when I did my masters and before that, if you went into lectures, you met people. There was an interaction.
Yes.
And you've got courseworks to do with it. And then the best bits were the seminars where you got to know your lecturers. You can't have that level of human touch if you're doing it behind a computer screen.
Bedroom is terrible, depressing.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah, and it can't be very engaging either, just to be sat on a laptop.
Ella, is it you as well of looking at the Times story? This is a very important one, isn't it? About an Alzheimer's drug being approved. I seem to see this headline an awful lot in recent times. Is this a better news, more firm news?
There is some slightly firmer news around this, which is that the US Food and Drug Administration has yesterday approved this new drug called Leqembi, I think I'm pronouncing it right, which, it's not going to be rolled out to patients immediately. There's still some stuff to kind of underline about it. For example, one of the side effects can be brain swelling, brain bleeding, so people who are taking this drug need to have regular brain scans, and all of that needs to be worked out. However, 8 out of 1,800 people over 18 months who took it, 27% of them had less decline, were able to remember more, were able to do those kind of normal day-to-day things for longer. Obviously, this is not a cure for Alzheimer's. This does not fix it. It does not reverse it. It just slows the progress of the disease, which is a wonderful thing. And how it works is the drug removes the amyloid, which is this. I've just read about this.
Technical.
Tell us though.
I'm conscious that you just had a doctor on lots of stuff, so I'm going to sound like an idiot.
Get Daniel back in.
But it's
if you don't get it right, we'll let him back in.
It's a kind of sticky substance, sticky thing, amyloid that creates plaques. That is part of the reason why decline is so quick. And so this drug seeks to remove them or prevent them from forming so quickly. And it's just it's yet to be fully rolled out. But the Food and Drug Administration board in the US has approved it, and it could just mean that people get 6 months more of normal life, and until a point at which we do find a cure for Alzheimer's or we do get more progress, this is just going to be wonderful news to those who find it early. It's important that the drug is taken by people who get diagnosed very early.
Yes, indeed.
It just is one of the worst diseases.
Very
it will be.
It is.
Yeah,
it really
is. Just a cruel disease.
Now it is the weekend. It is.
Yep. Let's have some fun.
Let's have some fun. Claire, you've got a spread of stories here. The Daily Star.
Yeah, the Daily Star, right, rivet read. Right, so what we've gone for is, Ella and I thought, gosh, there's too much doom and gloom. There is. So let's just lighten it up a bit. So we've got in the Mirror, Love Island Villa next to prison. Is that a prophetic fallacy? Is that because that's where they'll end up after the show? And we say social media is a good thing. We say social media is a bad thing. But here for the next version of Love Island, hosted by Maya Jama, it will be coming into your screens from Cape Town, and the contestants and their families have been banned from using social media, which I think is a really interesting, very good ploy, because some of the faceless bots on Twitter and all the rest of it is really, really harmful, I think. But do you know what? Instead of having like the trolls in Love Island, why not ask them just to cover up? Why not ask them to keep their bits to themselves and don't be so explicit in the way that they project themselves? Do you?
I love Love Island, or I used to when they were able to sort of smoke and have sex on it. Now it's really boring. And also I love every year I sit watching it and I watch on my phone all the discussion online, because there's a lot of nasty stuff, but there's also some really good sort of mick-taking that happens online with people, having running commentaries and things like that. And as I watched it from the beginnings, way back in the early 2000s, where it was much more like you just got a lot of it was a bit like Big Brother. You got some interesting
people.
Well, now it's all
influencers.
But it used to be kind of, you found casting directors would find a character, someone who was normal but who was some kind of eccentric, and threw them in together, and it was really good crack. It was much better. I think it's too staged now as part of the problem. I think they should reintroduce the booze and fags and let them fight a bit.
We seem to have moved into a TV review section, but never mind. Okay, now this is a great story in The Guardian about TikTok, and what do you tell us?
Well, the thing is about social media, that's the segue in from all of this. We can say social media is really bad, the trolls, etc., etc. And this is another incident of TikTok. So this is making a splash. Rural river crossing forced to close after TikTok helps flood it with spectators. Deep in the English countryside is an ancient river crossing that has been used in various forms for at least 1,000 years. It featured in the Domesday Book, attracted Cistercian monks who built an abbey nearby, and more recently served as a handy shortcut for Nottinghamshire commuters. But Rufford Ford has now been closed. Why has it been closed?
Go on.
Because the video clips of cars driving through it attracted millions of views online on TikTok. And for our listeners on the radio, there's a good graphic here of a 4x4 going through, which looks like a river, actually.
Can you spin it round for us?
This is...
Can we see that?
Rufford Ford. So we've got a YouTuber,
lift it up a little. There we go.
A 50-year-old YouTuber. Where are we? Camera 4? Camera 3?
That camera will do.
All right, okay. Yeah. And we've got people driving through it to make a flood. And what's happened is it's been recorded, and people have gone onto social media to record this and keep going, and it's just made the Ford often resembled a log flume at a theme park as drivers attempted to plough through it.
I quite like that story when TikTok comes in and
Are you on TikTok?
I'm on it, but I just watch.
Nicholas, are you on TikTok?
I'm not going to answer that question.
It goes viral all the time, Claire.
Indeed. Right. Well, both of you, Claire and Ella, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Really
It's
good
been
to have
super.
you
I'm
both.
glad we've had some nice, bright news.
Yeah.
And we haven't actually mentioned Prince Harry for all about 10 minutes, and that's super as well.
We needed that,
Viewers
didn't we?
will probably